That's great. Anytime you're ready, I'm okay. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Senator Cardin. Joe, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Ariane. Our next speaker, Senator Ben Cardin, is a longtime champion of new market tax credits, both in his role as a senior member of the Senate Finance Committee and as the lead Democratic co-sponsor of the New Markets Tax Credit Extension Acts of 2019. He has fought to make the NMTC a permanent financial tool for economically distressed rural and urban communities. A third-generation Marylander and ranking member of the Senate Small Business Committee, Ben Cardin understands that creating jobs and growing our economy is good not just for our state of Maryland, but is paramount for our national recovery. He wants to ensure the government works smarter, investing in core programs that will restore America's competitive edge globally and help create jobs today and into the future. Senator Cardin has been my representative during his time in the Maryland legislature, through his time in the House, and now in the Senate. I would now like to welcome Senator Ben Cardin.
Well, Joe, first of all, thank you for that very kind introduction, and thank you for your work on the Urban Action and Community Development, everything you do on the New Market Tax Credit Coalition. I'm sorry I can't even be with you on Zoom today because we have a whole series of votes on the floor of the United States Senate, so we're between the first and second vote right now. So there's a lot of activity going on as Congress is trying to get its work done before the recess. The most pressing needs are going to be dealing with the appropriations that expires at the end of this week, probably be extended to next week, and the passage of a COVID relief package. And we are getting a little more optimism about getting both of those issues done before we adjourn for the year. So please excuse the fact that I can't be with you. I know that the pandemic has changed the way we would normally do business. Normally we could do this in person. And I do think it also underscores another important point. We know that vulnerable communities during pandemics and during economic downturns are more vulnerable and suffer more than the general community itself. And it just points out the incredible importance of the new market tax credits and having them available to help distressed communities and underserved communities. So 2020 has been a unique year. It's been a unique year for many reasons. The pandemic obviously has been the major story for 2020, but it's also been a year where we've unmasked systemic discrimination and racism issues in our community. We saw that in the criminal justice system with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and others, and the demonstrations that we saw around America, the broad participation, very diverse participation of Americans to stand up for correcting these systemic problems that we have in our community. And it goes well beyond just the criminal justice system. It's certainly included in the healthcare system. Those that have been victimized by COVID-19, a much higher percentage in communities of color and minority communities. We know about the economic disparities in America, and the list goes on and on and on. We've been making progress over the history of America to try to narrow those gaps and continue along our path towards equal justice and equal opportunity. And I say that as a preliminary because we're in the midst of this pandemic. It's hitting communities, vulnerable communities more severely, and it just underscores the importance of the new market tax credits. The new market tax credits were designed to help vulnerable communities. It has had a tremendous record of success since its adoption in the early 2000s. It has produced a lot of really good positive activity, creating more than 1 million jobs. $52 billion of investment that is leveraged, that's direct investment that's leveraged over $100 billion in communities of high rates of poverty and unemployment. So, and when you look at the economic benefit versus cost, it's approximately $20,000 of public investment for every job that's created. That's a very good return for our economy. So it's been not only targeted to the communities that need it, with economic activity and facilities that are important in those communities, but it's also done that at a very effective investment by the taxpayers of America. In Maryland, we've created over 34,000 jobs, $3.6 billion in capital investment, 93 projects like the Bell North Theater in Southeast Baltimore. This was turned into an employment center for immigrants and minority individuals, city residents, to benefit Casa de Maryland. That's providing tangible benefit right now to vulnerable individuals in a distressed area of Baltimore, a very positive impact as a result of the new market tax credits. Or the Mission House of Freedom, which is going to be a shelter and safety for women and children in low-income communities. These are all positive projects that are benefiting underserved communities as a result of new market tax credits. We have the new market tax credits basically tries to level the playing field so that we can get investment in distressed communities and get facilities that are needed in distressed communities. You all know how it works, the 39% credit over 7 years under Treasury, CDFIs, and the local community development entities. It's a very efficient program. It's working well. But here's the challenge. It's temporary. And it's now set to expire at the end of this year. We need to make this program permanent. That is our top priority, is to make the new market tax credit permanent. We need to do that so that those that are active in these areas can do their planning, knowing that the credit is there, because as you know, a lot of these projects take multiple years in order to get off the ground, and you need to know the predictability of having the credit available in moving these projects forward. So it's planning, it's predictability, and by the way, it's cost. Uncertainty costs dollars. So we are wasting money by this annual or biannual dance where we have to go through an extension program. We need to make the new market tax credit permanent. The good news, we have bipartisan legislation in the United States Senate. My partner on this is Roy Blunt, and two of us have introduced the permanency of the new market tax credit. We have 36 co-sponsors. Thank you all for your help in getting that. It was included in H.R. 2 in the House of Representatives, so there's not only bipartisan, there's bicameral support for us to get the permanency done. The immediate concerns to make sure there's no gap at the end of this year, but our objective is to get the program permanent. So I appreciate this opportunity, and I thank you all for all that you do every day to advance these projects and to help us give opportunity in communities that otherwise would not have that. Let us work together so we can achieve our goal to help these underserved communities. And it's a pleasure to be with you, and thank you all again for everything you're doing.
Hi, this is Senators. Thanks for joining us today. If you're able to take a couple questions, we have some from the audience.
Okay.
Okay, so the first one is the 2020 election provided a split decision. The margin between House Democrats and Republicans has tightened. The Senate control is up for grabs, could be a tie-breaking vote. President-elect Biden put together a very ambitious tax plan and spending plan designed to reinvigorate the economy. With an almost 50-50 Congress, how likely are those proposals to pass, and what are the areas of potential compromise that you see?
Well, thanks for that question. I might give a little bit of my own personal bias in regards to the election of Vice President Biden. But first, the control of the Senate, as you know, is still undetermined. There's two runoff elections in Georgia, and if both of those elections were to go to Democrats, the Democrats would hold the slightest margin in the control of the United States Senate because Vice President Harris would cast the deciding vote. So it is still it won't be determined until after the January 5th election as to who controls the United States Senate. But even if the Democrats control the United States Senate, and with this slim margins in the House and the Senate, there is no question that an agenda put forward by the Biden administration is going to need to have bipartisan support. But here's the good news. Joe Biden's a product of the United States Senate. He understands that. He understands how to bring together Democrats and Republicans. not to ask for their votes on his bills, but to bring them in at the beginning of the discussion so that we have legislation that's crafted with the input of both Democrats and Republicans. And if we do that, particularly in the area we're talking about, in the tax code and in economic development, as you know, the new market tax credits are bipartisan. You say the same thing with the opportunity zones. You say the same thing with historic tax credits. You say the same thing with so many provisions that are in our tax code. Let's work in a bipartisan manner under the direction and leadership of the Biden administration to bring forward some sensible changes in our tax code that will help distressed communities. Yes, there's going to be broader issues on the tax code. We know that. The immediate concern is going to be to stimulate our economy out of this economic downturn as a result of the pandemic. And there, I would think we might be able to get bipartisan support on how we can stimulate the economy to create more jobs. And new market tax credits will obviously be part of that discussion.
Great, thank you. Just have one more question. With pandemic relief is so important. The new markets tax credit is kind of a part of that. So many of these federally qualified health centers are financed by new markets, 700 of them, and they're on the front lines right now fighting the pandemic. What do you see the prospects of this bipartisan compromise that came out of the Senate? I guess there's a new version of it that was out today.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. Health centers have been a major focus for the use of the credits. Literally, I was in discussion with several of the members that I'm part of the negotiations when it comes to small business provisions, since I'm the ranking Democrat on the Small Business Committee. There's negotiations taking place. I'm right off the floor of the United States Senate in the back as the votes are taking place. And there was a major huddle on the major obstacle to reaching a consensus on the parameters of the agreement, and that's to do with liability issues. And they're negotiating that as we speak. So it's not done until it's done, but I am optimistic that there's good faith negotiations going on. Understand that this is going to be a proposal at around a $908 billion level. It's looked upon as a bridge to get us into the Biden administration. It's not the last chapter in COVID relief, but at least make sure that those who are unemployed continue to get benefits, that we deal with the vaccine and testing, that we deal with our schools, we deal with state and local government, we deal with small businesses, we deal with the mental health stress and the broadband needs. So there's so many in transportation. There's so many things that are in this that bridge us so that we don't hit a crisis worse than it is today. And I'll just give you one example in small business I'm directly involved with. If we don't get a COVID relief package until February, and that's when we would get it if we don't get it before Christmas, there's going to be as many as 1 out of every 3 small businesses in this country are going to have to close their doors. So we really do need to come together. And I was pleased to see Leader McConnell quoted as saying we wouldn't leave until we get a COVID package. I agree with that. I think we have to stay here until we complete the COVID package.